Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Honest Sarcastic with another car vlog spectacular. Yes, I know. I couldn't roll the R, so I just decided to do the funny thing at the end. Anyways, so yesterday I had an impromptu stream, pretty much by accident. I was planning to record some matches with my Jabba sister deck, and games were going pretty well for it. Anyone who got to watch probably was kind of excited to see that it could fight some of the more mainstream decks like 5-die Villain and Sabine Ezra. Like, we for the most part avoided some god rolls versus Sabine Ezra, and we did what we could versus 5-die Villain to survive pretty much. But overall it was a great testing to find like cards that just didn't feel good and be able to adjust the deck accordingly. So the video, the decklist article should be coming out, or maybe have already been out, depending on when I end up posting this video. Probably post it simultaneous, so I'd say go check it out at www.hyperloops. Oh my god, I suck at this, as you can tell. www.thehyperloops.com, and then you should see an article around the same date as this, roughly, about, you know, Budget Club or Casual Tuesdays, whatever you want to call it. And the deck that I'm piloting is very, very cheap, because it doesn't really have expansive legendaries. So there's essentially going to be two versions. There's going to be the original version I started to play with, which had only Jabba as the legendary, and yes, you need two because of the 2 dice. Don't try to cut costs there. The deck is very, very cheap. I want to say Jabbas are probably around, what, $10 each, max. So if you're spending 20 there, we're saving on a lot of the rares you would normally have in other decks, because the number of dice upgrades in the deck is severely limited. I want to say that we're looking pretty much at Personal Shield and either Chance Cube or Houndstooth, depending on how budget you want to go. The testing I had with Houndstooth was much better than the Chance Cube, primarily because the way I play, I don't like Chance Cube. I do not like to pitch to reroll into Oblivion. When you're playing Mill, there's an air of not necessity, but like it's more fast action paced. If you get to play on your command center, then they start with shields. You pretty much don't care about those unless you're playing against Qui-Gon, and you are going to need to try to rip their hand out and claim very fast while still stopping their damage, which is insanely hard. Like, you in theory, let's say they get a good damage string. If you cast one piece of mitigation that ruins the string completely, they have no cards left in hand, they just claim, because they don't feel that they have anything to gain. If it's a bunch of base damage sides and you just take out a big chunk, then yes, they resolve and then you claim. But whatever you're doing in the middle of that is going to be the real question, because like hitting Jabba's dice and then either focusing and then resolving discard, that's several actions, and some of the faster decks don't, their pace of action play is the same. Like, if this is versus, let's say, like, you know, 4-wide, whether it be redeploy or vehicles, there's going to be a ton of actions in between, because they're casting the upgrade, then they're rolling out. They have to roll out 4 separate guys and like try to resolve damage, and then re-roll and decide when to just re-roll their base instead of trying to be cute about it to string in like additional modifiers based on whether they're running like TIE Pilot and stuff. Because in the situations where you're running like TIE Pilot, your base dice are safer as long as the TIE Pilot dice is safe. But if, let's say, they doubt the base die, then the options are to either resolve or remove it, meaning that the TIE pilot die is not going to save it anymore. So it's very tough there. Depending on the speed of the opponent's deck, you have to like decide how you're going to do stuff. If your opponent's deck is very, very fast, you may decide that you want to abuse as much of your dice as possible, because since you probably won't be able to outclaim them, so you'll take a much slower roll, let them mill you a bit, and set you up for better positioning. If they're very slow deck, you're pretty much going to set up to blow up their hand, try to mess with their dice a bit, and then claim and get out of there. Like there can be several times where you might hit 2 discard on a Jabba, play with the dice, and then claim, and really not do much else beside that, because you'll have, like, let's say cast fast hands or hunker down, tap it, get a shield, all right, activate, discard, oh, the round's pretty much over claim. So you want to keep things into I don't know the word I'm looking for here. It's kind of like you just, like, when you're doing a test and you go, orders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, most people do tests in order. You don't, like, skip and hop around. So you kind of want to see what the order you're looking to do is, and then, like, stuff will change minutely, but for the most part, you have a rough idea of what's going on. They'll roll out. If they hit massive amounts of damage, you can try to Night Sister to try to, like, curb the damage. If they whiff, you go do this. So, like, there's at least a couple steps you want to keep in mind of what's going on, and be prepared for them to do whatever, and then you to try to be able to claim. Because if you're on command center, doing the claim is equivalent to about 2 damage. Because the way I view it is this: they have 30 health, and I don't mean character health, I'm referring to the cards in their deck. So every time they play a card, they're losing a health. Every time they discard a card to reroll, they're losing a health. And like, all your Jabba sides discards are 2 damage. The Night Sister discards are 1 damage. And then you've got, like, command centers are 2 damage. Loose ends are 4. No diversions 1 damage, then 3 damage. And if you think of it kind of like that as a damage perspective, it'll be much easier to kind of plow through. The way I kind of view it is that you're looking to probably need to do about 22 damage. The reason for 22 is the expectation is that your opponent will probably cast 2 upgrades minimum, or like supports, but depending on what they're playing. Probably cast 1 or 2 pieces of removal via, like, doubt or, like, isolation to try to stop, like, a 2 discard side, or you from doing something that hurts them immensely. Like, let's say you had a personal shield on, like, a 2 or a 3 or something. And then they're going to reroll about 4 times. If your opponent is very, very stingy versus mill, the 4 is pretty much like the base minimum. You're expecting, like, 1 reroll a round for 4 rounds. There are people who will ditch their entire hand and, like, help you mill them out. Those people tend to be more dangerous, actually, because the people who are keeping bad cards in hand, trying to prevent themselves from dying and gaining additional time, set themselves to lose to, like, loose ends, no diversions, and the buyout in the deck, because you're being allowed time where they're being very inefficient. But at the same time, the people who just are maniacal in the rerolls, I also fit that path, are teetering on the line of death. Like, we're playing chicken, pretty much. We'll pitch the card, we'll reroll, we'll try to smash massive amounts of damage in. Better players who are maniacal like that will flip back and forth depending on what everything looks like. So let's say for some reason Jabba's hands mainly, or the build deck hand is pretty much gone. Like, the problem is that the Night Sisters exist. So, like, they'll try to reroll to hit multiple base, or they'll have resources to then X8 to the base damage several times, because they can flip it to the 1, have Night Sister, ping, flip it to the 1, Night Sister ping, yada yada. And if Night Sister ever pings and it hits the 1 or the 3 while you have resources available, then jackpot, resolve your damage. And in our case with 5-die villain, or Jesus Christ, I'm talking 5-die villains. point of view. In the case of like 5-die villain, that's a bala reset, and a bala reset can easily snowball the game because now, blam, probably one Night Sister's dead. The second one gets a big chunk taken out or dies, and now we're looking at, you know, Jabba by himself. No more spot blue cards. There's only like a couple in the deck, but no more range for loose ends. So there could be some dilemmas there. But overall, the deck is very interesting because even though we're having to play against Intimidate, Vibro Knife is seeing far less play, and the whole trying to string into modifiers for Vibro Knife is very tough. Prior to the most recent nerf, trying to string modifiers was pretty blasphemous. Like, if you had modifiers, you just gave yourself a tougher time through the match, and now it is much more relevant in the case of Vibro Knife and things like Force Illusion. It's both bad and good. Oh, Jesus Christ, my voice is cracking. Sorry, guys. So, against things like Force Illusion, we're looking at modifying into huge damage is both good and bad. The scenarios where it's good is when your opponent is so far down into their deck, when you modify damage, they can't actually block it because the amount of damage they'd have to bust through. The scenarios where it's bad is when it's at the beginning of the game and now you're trying to hit a 5 damage string into their key guy. There's a Force Illusion, and now you can't. Because if you just put 5 in, they'll be like, okay, I'll flip 5 cards, thanks. Like, good job, wasted your turn, alright. In most scenarios, Force Illusion hits about 3 damage. In bad situations, it's 2. In situations where you didn't get it till way near the end, your opponent is pros balls, or you went full stupid and took too much damage when you should have Force Illusioned earlier, you don't ever like hit 1 for it. There are some scenarios where it's funny though, where it'll be like on a Night Sister and you ping and Force Illusion the 1 because she was gonna die anyways. I was like, oh, that's funny. But so anyways, back to the mill deck. The deck operates very interestingly. So the version that you'll see has 2 doubts, 2 overconfidence, 2 flanks, 2 he doesn't like you, 2 doubts, 2 he doesn't like you, flanks, overconfidence. I want to say that's the only removal as far as actual die mitigation removal. So that's 8 pieces. But we have 2 Hunker Downs, 2 Force Illusions, 2 personal shields, and then depending on whether you're going the full budget version that just has chance cubes, which I don't, just spend the extra money on Houndstooth. That version doesn't have these, but the Houndstooth version has 2 additional sets of shields, and it also generates money that way, which is equivalent to chance cube from a regular standpoint. Of chance cube costs 1 every time you activate it and can hit 1, 2, or 3, and Houndstooth costs 2 to play it and then can hit 1 or 2, but could also just eat Jabba's die to regain the resource. And there are situations where Jabba's die sucks, or it's just like threatening stuff you don't care anyways. But anyways, so back to the thing. So like there's a lot of shield action and block damage going on because there isn't a ton of unblockable going around. So like you have like synchronicities from like Mono Blue Hero, you have whatever Vibro Knife string damage that comes up, like Lightsaber, the original ones, like special. Outside of that, almost everything else is blockable. So you're just like, all right, like shields are great, and you just shield up and move on with your life. And the thing with Hunker Down and Night Sister is that each round that you have those, you're essentially getting a pinged reroll or a controlled reroll. So while it's not sound the alarm-esque in the fact that it can machine gun multiple dice, it does do very cool stuff, like just flip that, reroll that 2. All right, you got a shield, cool, don't care about that. Or you got a resource, don't care about that. Or you disrupted me, still don't care about that. So like in that match, there's a lot of dead sides is how I would like to classify it, because unless you're doing something akin to what Bobby Sapphire talked about in that article, with like using outside or pretty much other things to do like damage or generate resources. So like buyout mills via eating resources. Riposte does damage via eating shields. Fight Dirty eats yellow dice, and Arms to the Teeth eats, your upgrades on your yellow character. So like in those situations, your opponent could build up without you really being able to affect those, and then throw things at you, which would give you other die sides or viable die sides. So like shields, when you're playing against Qui-Gon, is additional damage, which can be very scary, but it's a slow damage, so it's okay. You can kind of deal with it. But Riposte is the scarier one, because Caution you don't care about until Riposte throws 3 at you, and then like that deck also has like Synchronicity, so it can be tough sometimes. But overall, the deck operates relatively well. So we just named 14 of the cards for pretty much protection, mitigation, staying alive, shield, health, however you want to term it. After that, we're looking at the base mill portion of the engine. Is just pretty much 5 cards. It is, or I guess we'll count 6. So it's 2 loose ends, which mills 4, as a 2 resource mill 4 card. It almost is the equivalent to a full round worth of damage, because essentially if we're expecting to play the game and win, we want to. The game needs to end by round 5 at the absolute latest. Like round 5 needs to be the end game. So hitting 1 loose ends and a no diversion, no disintegration. I don't know if I said no diversion. I was calling it wrong. Sorry. No disintegration to mill 5. That would set us up for, if the opponent had no hand every round, that's 5 rounds and then the eye. So it's 2 loose ends, 2 no disintegrations, and a buyout. Loose ends, in case you didn't know, is a 2-cost yellow event villain. Ambush, remove 1 of your dice showing a ranged damage, and then mill your opponent 4. And then no disintegration is a 1-cost blue event, and it says your opponent mills 1. If you have another no disintegration in your discard pile, they mill 3 instead. Then I have 1 buyout for the big mills. It doesn't often see play, but sometimes you get very flush with resources versus certain decks while they're turtling, because if they're turtling damage and nothing's really going on and they don't let you mill them, because let's say they have their own Night Sister or whatever, life gets tough, but you can generate a bunch of additional resources, especially if we get into like pass wars, where people try to be cute about stuff, and then we'll just accept that and move on with our lives. You can generate a bunch of resources, so then you can just buy them out for like 4, 6, 8, whatever it is, and then the 6th card is essentially just a recursion one. It's cheat. So cheat here does a couple cool things. I don't think I'll ever be able to cheat a loose ends because it costs too much, but if you cheat no disintegration after you already have this, like, so both are in the pool, like you already cast one of them, then you're picking up a 1-cost 3 mill card. So it's essentially it's like loose ends, but it mills 1 less and doesn't require you to have the range damage side. So there's interesting things there. Sometimes you'll pick up the buyout to do it, but the other key card for the mill, which is not from deck, is Lying in Wait. Lying in Wait is a 1-cost yellow event villain. Your opponent discards down to the same number of cards you have in hand. So you may be thinking, honestly, Grastic, why would I run that thing? Well, if you've never seen this thing, you haven't really seen mill and how scary and annoying it is. But you've probably been in those situations where you have no cards left in deck, and now your opponent's struggling to get rid of the last few cards from their hand. You're trying to batch them out. You're not doing rerolls. People are like being forced to claim and end the round and go to the next round. You get a fresh round as long as you have any single card left. This is where Lying in Wait comes in. When you're pretty much busting this shit up and you get the end of the deck, there's going to be times where your opponent claims because there's nothing else they can do and they're not going to reroll. So if you get discards, you discard them. You ended up using up the rest of your hand or pitching down. You're going to be down to the last one card. You're going to cast Lying in Wait. They're going to lose their entire hand. It is the best closeout finisher for the deck, period. If you can buy out someone's deck and then Lying in Wait all of their hand, the game, normally speaking, ends right there. There are situations you're going to run into that could be problematic. So things like Ancient Lightsaber. But Ancient Lightsaber is also another weird one. So a lot of people will think, okay, well, I have Ancient Lightsaber, so when I have no cards left in hand and no cards left in deck, I'll just put it on the bottom. There's a couple issues with this. One is this: if Jabba has fast hands or 2 fast hands on him, he can hit the discard to get rid of that last card from your hand at the start of the next round, especially if they go first. So in a situation where you put the Ancient Lightsaber down, if you ever pass, they can pass to end the round. So then at some point you kind of need to put that thing on the bottom. So if we're on Command Center, you put it on the bottom, I claim, it mills you, game's over. So you're screwed. In the situation where we're not on Command Center, they could just claim and then try to just hit the discard, but like that's relatively bad. But it's the other reason that we have the additional cheat in there, and the no disintegrations for just 1, loose ends, whatever, we'll get that last card and we're fine. I'm considering putting a new orders in to flip over to Command Center. I just don't know if paying 2 to get off the battlefield to be onto Command Center is worth it or not. But it'll be an interesting thing to find out, because I'd prefer to have a second cheat than anything else. But that's neither here nor there, because if Force Illusion mills like 2 cheats and a 2 Lying in Waits and the cheat, we have problems. But so Lying in Wait is the best end game finisher for the deck in that last round, period. There are also times where you've just done stuff, they've claimed early, they're sitting with 4 cards in hand, and you're like, alright, well, I'm just gonna do stuff and re-roll and get exactly what I want, and then cast Lying in Wait and take your 4-card hand, because that right there is very strong play. So it's the other reasons for having like the cheats, because you're gonna mulligan Lying in Wait back. You don't want to find it till the end. But there are times where at the beginning it's very good. So, but 1 cost discard 4 or 5 is pretty amazing. Sometimes I wish there was a way for us to burn through our hand faster. But so we've just looked at 5 cards to mill from deck, 2 cards for their hand, then cheat. So that's 8, and we've already had 14. No, wait. We had 8 mitigation. That was 2 Hunker Down, 2 Personal Shield, 2 Houndstooth. Yeah, so 8 plus 14, so we're at 22. We have 8 cards left. So the last 8 cards, you've heard some of them already, were fast hands. It's Jabba's best friend, because you can immediately go and disrupt them or discard their hand, depending on what we're looking to do. You could also just focus straight into a 2 discard, or focus straight into like shields on a personal shield if you had it on him, etc., etc. So 6 cards left. 2 of them are bait and switch. So people are very used to bait and switch on aggressive decks like Vader Raider. You see it very often in things like 5-die villain, because you need to change those focus size into 1 to 2 damage. And the big thing here is that when we roll out Jabba's dice, not counting his ability, we're at 30% to see a discard side. If we have a bait and switch in hand and we're banking on getting to discard right away, we're now looking at 55% to hit discard or resource. If we take the additional Jabba reroll into account with just discard, I want to say we're looking at about 41%. I think it's 41.5. But we'll call it 41% to just hit discard regular. If we're so either that or resources, 41%. So if we discount both discard and resource, we were 55 for 2. So it switches it down up to 70%, accounting for Jabba's reroll. I'm not going to sit here and explain the math in detail, but the breakdown is we have 33% on each of Jabba's dice, and then we're going to have an additional 33%. So when you do it and you rip down over and over, the first die is worth 33, second die is worth 22, and then the third die is going to be worth 15. 1 second. It was a slowdown in the right lanes, and I'm going through a tunnel or the artery, as you can tell by stuff changing. Sorry, didn't notice the video angle change because I never looked. Just look now. So, where was I at? Yeah, so 70%. 70% is a very strong option for being able to hit the discard sides. The other thing is that there are times where you're just going to want to, let's say, like disrupt your opponent or sneakily do stuff. So there are lots of trick plays there. One is because if your opponent knows you run bait and switch, sometimes they go and they eat the disrupt sides or the resource sides. The other thing is though is it makes it an option on Night Sister. So if Night Sister hits a resource and then you need to find the base range sides or deep range sides so that you can loose ends, you can flip it those. If you find, on the Houndstooth, if you hit any of the resource sides and you need to flip into shields or solo disrupt, that is also an option. So, see what's going on there. Some guy's on my ass. Sorry, 1 second, guys. What the fuck? Alright, some people are retarded drivers. And I say that term all the time, so please don't be upset with me, because if someone has a physical or like mental impediment, like I really wouldn't use that term for them, and I understand that other people would go and use that, but no, I just use this on regular people that aren't the brightest. If you want to kill themselves, like go ahead, but don't take me with you, you know? Anyways, so where was I at? Jabba and bait and switches. So after the bait and switches, we have 4 cards left, and I'll be honest, I can't remember what those 4 cards are. Let us think. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't have any other guns in the deck. I'm not going to go to my SW Destiny while driving, because that's just like asking for death. I don't know. I guess you'll just have to see it on the list. If it comes to me, we'll talk about them again. But we're missing 4 cards because we were at 22, 24, yeah. They're not upgrades. They weren't mitigation according to my thinking on that stuff. Cheat in the buy over 1-ups. Notice we should use this cheat, but oh, 2 of them had to have been Force Illusion, because it said 8 mitigation, 2 hunkers, 2 personal shields, 2 Houndstooth, 2 Force Illusions. That was 16. 8, we're at 24. W. Alright, so we figured out 2. We've got 2 left, guys. I was playing Mill. What card would we need to win the game? I got nothing, guys. It's not salvage stand. There's no like random disarms or anything. So, in theory, I can pause this and go find out once I park, but that'd be cheating. So, I guess we'll just continue with that. So, like overall, the deck seems pretty solid. If anyone's wondering why I moved the camera, it's because I drive stick, so I always have this hand free on the... my brain's terrible right now. I'm going to call it shifter. So, between that and strong peripheral vision, I can see that my head is only like on the bottom portion of the camera. So I could at least move it around for those that are viewing and watching stuff in the background. Actually, there's nothing in the background, it's too bright in the day apparently. So I'm just talking nonsense now, I'm sorry guys. But the deck overall operates pretty well. The deck we don't want to see Sabine. While Sabine does try to help us discard our hand via stuff like smuggling, like if she ever casts scavenge to try to find an upgrade, we really do help her immensely by A, putting the correct stuff that she needs in the discard pile, and B, probably having resources available for her to steal. So like we have the 2 personal shields and the 2 houndstooths to cast first round, to then prevent Ezra from stealing from us if we need to, but then we lose the ability to cast flank and overconfidence. It's a tough thing. Like the only thing we have going is that the disrupt is insanely scary to her because she operates on a much higher resource basis than other decks do, and her die rolls are much more questionable. But she will have an action cheat every round, and that can be brutal. And then once stuff like running interference hits, no, my card does not rend. I hate that. And then if she potentially has infamous with Never Tell Me the Odds, we have some situations where we can get just blown out damage wise. But because we have the discards, we kind of screw them from trying to set those things up. So if the opponent's on Moisture Farm, things can get interesting. If the opponent's on Starfleet Graveyard is when we're going to have tough times ahead of us, because they can stack like the running interferences to then eventually just be able to Never Tell Me the Odds and like snipe out guys. But in theory, we might have time between the Hunker Downs and Night Sister and personal shields. So I'm gonna let this guy that's moving up go ahead. That's probably one of the scary decks, but I think it's scary for both parties because they trying to fight through disrupt can be really hard, and that deck really just doesn't want to deal with that if they don't have to. I'm pretty sure in the Jabba deck I don't have sound the alarms, so trying to fight through and Never Tell Me the Odds that doesn't have an infamous or running interference doesn't particularly exist. We do have the overconfidences, which if she sets up for that, we can just make her reroll 2 of them and eat 1. There's not amazing odds for her to refine damage on both, and if she hits the 3 disrupt on any of those, then we can immediately kill whatever the other die is. So there's some viable options there. I'm not a huge fan of Sound the Alarm. It makes sense there because you want people to reroll, so you can screw with them quite a bit. So like it can potentially make its way in, but the deck space is very, very tight. Like so tight that I haven't been able to find a space for a second sheet. So 1 second, you're gonna hear a wiper. Sorry, don't hate me. It just started to rain, and I know everyone who watches the videos absolutely despises the fact when I drive in the rain. Problem, this is Massachusetts, and we don't get much of a choice here. So on that note, I think I'm just going to end this early so that you people don't have to deal with the wiper thing, because it is now a downpour. Thank you for watching my car vlog and sticking through it and listening to me like ramble on for the last like 5, 6, 7 minutes of trying to figure out my deck list while driving because I don't memorize it. But the deck operates very good. I'd say play it out. The impromptu stream session should have me playing it quite a bit, and hopefully you'll learn some things about it. And yeah, love us a long time. But on Sarcastic from the Hyperloop, reporting out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook. Then we have a Tumblr. We got an Instagram. And if you ever want to get in the competitive spirit, feel free to join our Patreon on the $3 higher tiers. Get into our Discord and play with a lot of others that are like you that want to strive to be much better at the game, potentially be the best. You can learn, you can live, you can prosper. I'm just speaking nonsense. Woo. But alright guys, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, thanks for, just supporting us. You guys have a great one. On Sarcastic, reporting out. Hyperloops for life. Squad life, baby. Squad life, Bobo. Peace out.